The gun was inches from her face when she realized she'd fallen in love with the wrong man. But let's rewind 6 months, to the moment Amaka Okafor's life changed forever. The airplane wheels screamed against the tarmac, jolting her awake from a restless sleep. Through the frost-kissed window, Incheon International Airport emerged from the darkness like a glittering fortress, its lights piercing the pre-dawn sky with cold precision. Amaka's fingers dug into the armrest, her breath forming shallow clouds in the cabin's recycled air. Somewhere beneath the turbulence of excitement and terror churning in her chest, a single thought hammered with relentless certainty. There was no going back now, Seoul, South Korea, 7,000 miles from Lagos, from her mother's cooking, from Yoruba prayers echoing through Sunday morning services, from everything that had ever defined her existence. She'd traded it all for a scholarship to one of Korea's most ruthless business universities, a program with a 60% dropout rate and a reputation for breaking even the most brilliant minds. As she dragged her scuffed suitcase through the terminal, past faces that looked right through her like she was invisible, Amaka made herself a promise she would not break. She would not fail. She would not become another cautionary tale. The culture shock didn't just hit her. It devoured her whole soul, moved like a predator, fast and merciless, leaving casualties in its wake. The language twisted her tongue into knots, consonants sharp as broken glass. The food burned her throat, fermented and strange, nothing like the warm comfort of jollof rice and plantains. The subway system became a daily nightmare, rivers of people flowing with synchronized precision while she stumbled and apologized in broken Korean that earned more grimaces than sympathy. At night, crammed in a dormitory room barely larger than a closet, she'd press her face into her pillow and cry silent tears, tasting salt and failure. But Amaka Okafor wasn't built for surrender. Her grandmother had survived civil war. Her mother had built a business from nothing with calloused hands and iron will. That blood ran through her veins, hot and defiant. So she fought back. She attacked Korean grammar like an enemy to be conquered, stayed after every lecture interrogating professors until they knew her name, forced herself to eat kimchi until the burn became addictive rather than painful. She befriended the outcasts, the other foreigners clinging to the margins, and together they formed their own tribe of survivors. Slowly, agonizingly, Seoul stopped feeling like a battlefield and started feeling like a challenge she could win. Her Korean went from catastrophic to competent to confident. She discovered she had a gift for business strategy, an instinct for reading markets that made her professors take notice. The girl who'd arrived terrified and alone transformed into a woman who walked into rooms and commanded attention without saying a word. By the time graduation arrived, Amaka stood at the top of her class, diploma in hand, job offers flooding her inbox like a tidal wave. She'd conquered the impossible, but the universe, as she would learn, was just warming up. The email arrived on a rain-soaked Thursday, the subject line glowing like a challenge. Executive position interview, Vanguard Corporation. Amaka's heart stopped. Vanguard wasn't just a company, it was an empire. A multinational conglomerate that moved markets with a whisper, that made competitors tremble and governments negotiate. They didn't hire fresh graduates. They recruited proven titans, industry legends, people who'd already left their mark on the world. Yet somehow, impossibly, they wanted to interview her. She prepared like she was going to war. 72 hours of research, memorizing every executive bio, every quarterly report, every press release dating back 5 years. She practiced answers until her roommate threatened to move out, refined her posture until she could project confidence in her sleep. The morning of the interview, she selected a midnight blue suit that cost 2 months' part-time wages, sharp enough to cut through doubt. Standing before Vanguard's obsidian tower, a monument of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the clouds themselves, she took one breath, then another, tasting ambition, thick on her tongue. The elevator to the executive floor moved so smoothly she barely felt it, but her stomach still dropped. When the doors whispered open, She stepped into a world designed to intimidate black marble floors, reflected her image like dark water. Contemporary art that probably cost more than her education hung on walls. Everything screamed power, money, and the systematic elimination of weakness. A steel-haired receptionist with a smile like a blade directed her to a boardroom where 4 executives sat in judgment, and at the center, radiating authority like a controlled explosion, sat Kang Ji-won. He was devastating in a way that had nothing to do with conventional handsomeness. Sharp jaw, eyes so dark they seemed bottomless, calculating and cold, his suit fit like armor, every line precise, every detail controlled. When those eyes locked onto hers, Amaka felt the impact like a physical blow, electricity crackling in the space between them. Her pulse stuttered. Her carefully rehearsed confidence wavered, but she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and met his gaze without flinching. She would not be intimidated. Not today. The interview was an interrogation disguised as conversation. They threw scenarios designed to expose weakness, questions with no right answers, hypotheticals meant to reveal character under pressure Amaka didn't just answer. She performed. She wove her journey into every response, talking about resilience forged in isolation, about innovation born from being perpetually underestimated, about the power of perspective that came from standing at the intersection of 2 worlds, her voice steady, her eyes bright, her passion undeniable. Kang Ji-won sat motionless as a statue, but his eyes never left her. He interrupted twice, questions surgical in their precision, designed to test if her confidence was armor or substance. She didn't falter. She parried every thrust, matching his intensity with her own quiet fire, proving she belonged in rooms like this with people like him. Something shifted in the air. The other executives exchanged glances, impressed. But Kang Ji-won's expression remained unreadable, a fortress with no visible gates. As Amaka stood to leave, she felt his gaze burning into her back, heavy and intense, loaded with something she couldn't name. Walking out of that building, she had no idea that in his pristine corner office, Kang Ji-won sat staring at her file, replaying every word she'd spoken, trying and catastrophically failing to convince himself that what he felt was purely professional interest. 1 week later, her phone rang. She'd gotten the position. Amaka screamed so loud her neighbors banged on the walls, but she didn't care. She'd done the impossible again. What she didn't know was that she'd just walked into the most dangerous game of her life. Amaka attacked Vanguard Corporation like a woman possessed. 16-hour days became normal. She absorbed company knowledge like oxygen, identified inefficiencies others had missed for years, proposed strategies so innovative that senior executives started seeking her input. Within 3 months, she'd become indispensable. Within 6, clients specifically requested her presence in negotiations. Her reputation grew like wildfire. Brilliant and unstoppable Kang Ji-won watched every moment. He told himself he was monitoring a valuable asset, ensuring his investment paid dividends. But late at night, alone in his penthouse with Seoul glittering 50 floors below, he couldn't lie anymore. The way she laughed, unguarded and genuine, the fierce intelligence that lit her eyes when she believed in something, the graceful strength with which she moved through a world designed to break people like her. He was falling, and falling hard, and it terrified him more than any business deal ever had. He was the CEO of a multinational empire. She was his employee. He'd built his reputation on iron discipline, on boundaries others couldn't maintain. Romance was a distraction he'd trained himself to eliminate, a weakness he couldn't afford. But Amaka wasn't something he could file away and forget. She was a fire burning through every wall he'd ever built. Their paths crossed constantly, strategy sessions that stretched past midnight, both of them alone in the office with the city sprawling beneath them, business trips where they sat inches apart in first class, the proximity electric and impossible to ignore. Moments when their hands brushed, reaching for the same document, skin on skin for a heartbeat that seemed to last forever. The tension between them grew suffocating, thick enough to choke on, an unspoken thing neither dared acknowledge. Amaka remained oblivious, laser-focused on building her career. To her, Kang Ji-won was a mentor, a brilliant and demanding leader, someone to admire but never dare imagine beyond the professional. She had no idea that behind his controlled exterior, he was waging a war against himself, and losing. One evening, after a negotiation so brutal it left the entire team exhausted, Amaka found herself alone in the office. The city glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul's neon heartbeat pulsing in the darkness. She rubbed her burning eyes, neck tight with stress. "You're going to burn yourself out at this rate." The voice came from shadows, smooth and deep. She spun to find Kang Ji-won, leaning in the doorway, jacket gone, tie loosened, looking almost human for the first time since she'd met him. "Learning from the best," she replied, managing a tired smile. His lips twitched, the ghost of something that might have been warmth. "Even I know when to stop." They walked to the elevator in comfortable silence, the empty office amplifying every breath, every footstep. When the doors closed around them, sealing them in intimate proximity, the air changed, became heavy, charged, dangerous. Amaka glanced at him, finding his profile sharp in the dim light. For one suspended heartbeat, she saw something raw in his expression, something that made her pulse stutter and her carefully maintained professional distance waver. But then, the doors opened, the moment shattered, and they stepped back into their respective roles. Kang Ji-won watched her disappear into the Seoul night, his hands clenched so hard his nails bit into his palms. Control was slipping, the dam was cracking. And soon, very soon, everything would break. The company threw a celebration worthy of royalty after landing a deal that would reshape the entire Asian market. The exclusive rooftop venue buzzed with triumph, champagne flowing like water, Seoul spreading beneath them like a conquered kingdom. Amaka, emboldened by success and wine, laughed freely, her joy infectious. She'd been the architect of this victory, and tonight she allowed herself to feel proud. Across the rooftop, Kang Ji-won stood with board members, nodding at their congratulations, but his attention was magnetic, pulled inexorably to her. She glowed, radiant in a way that physically hurt to witness. For months he'd rationalized, compartmentalized, denied. But watching her now, so vibrantly alive, he couldn't maintain the lie anymore. He'd fallen completely, irrevocably, catastrophically in love with Amaka Okafor. As guests dispersed into the glittering Seoul night, Amaka stood on the curb, slightly unsteady, fumbling for her phone. A sleek black car pulled up, and Kang Ji-won's voice cut through her alcohol-softened thoughts. "Get in. I'm taking you home." She hesitated, then slid into the passenger seat. The city blurred past, lights streaking like falling stars. Comfortable silence settled between them until Kang Ji-won's hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish." Amaka turned, suddenly sober, feeling the weight of whatever was coming. "From the moment you walked into that interview, you've occupied space in my mind I didn't know existed," he said, voice low and strained. "I tried to bury it, tried to maintain distance, to be professional. But I can't anymore. I won't." Her breath caught, the world tilting. "Ji-won." "I'm in love with you, Amaka," he interrupted, finally meeting her eyes, and the vulnerability there nearly broke her. "I know the complications, I know the risks, but you deserve to know the truth." The car stopped outside her building. Amaka sat frozen, her heart hammering so hard she thought he must hear it. When she finally looked at him, really looked, she saw past the CEO to the man beneath the hope struggling against fear, the courage it took to break his own rules. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Then don't say anything, not yet." His hand reached out, fingers barely brushing her cheek. "Just think about it. She stepped out into the cool night air, legs unsteady, mind reeling. As his car disappeared into Seoul's neon veins, Amaka realized with startling clarity that everything had just changed. And she had no idea if she was terrified or exhilarated or both. In his penthouse, Kang Ji-won stood at the window, allowing himself for the first time in years to hope that maybe, just maybe, love was worth the risk. Their relationship began in stolen moments, quiet dinners in obscure restaurants where they could be just Ji-won and Amaka. Not CEO and rising star conversations that stretched past dawn, revealing childhood scars and secret dreams. Weekend escapes to coastal villages where Seoul's judgment couldn't reach them. Slowly, carefully, they built something real. Kang Ji-won made his feelings public without hesitation, refusing to hide. The media erupted. Headlines screamed scandal. Gossip columns dissected their every appearance. The board questioned his judgment. Colleagues whispered in elevators and boardrooms, their speculation vicious and unrelenting. Amaka faced the cruelest attacks. Critics claimed she'd slept her way to success, that every achievement was gifted by a besotted boss. The accusations cut deep, but they also ignited something fierce inside her. She worked twice as hard, documented every victory, every innovative strategy, every client won through her own brilliance. Slowly, undeniably, she silenced the doubters with pure competence. Kang Ji-won weathered the corporate storm, making it clear his personal life and professional judgment remained separate. He held Amaka to higher standards than anyone else, never allowing accusations of favoritism to find purchase. If anything, their relationship made her work harder, prove more, achieve beyond question. Through it all, they held on to each other. Late-night conversations revealed depths neither had shared before. They learned each other's languages, both literal and emotional. Every crisis weathered together welded them closer, transforming attraction into something far more dangerous. Genuine love. 8 months passed. One evening, as they walked through Myeongdong's chaos, Kang Ji-won stopped abruptly. Amaka turned, questioning, finding him staring at her with an expression so raw it stopped her heart. "Build a life with me," he said, producing a ring that caught the city lights like captured fire. "Not despite our circumstances, because of them. Because you're the only person who's ever made me believe that love isn't weakness but strength." Tears blurred Amaka's vision as her journey flashed before her. The terrified girl who'd stepped off that plane. The warrior who'd conquered an impossible city. The woman who'd found love in the last place she'd ever expected. "Yes," she breathed, the word carrying every battle won, every fear overcome, every impossible thing made real. 1,000 times yes. Kang Ji-won slipped the ring onto her trembling finger, then pulled her close. The bustling crowds, the neon signs, the entire world faded until only the two of them existed. Two souls who'd found each other against impossible odds, proving that the most extraordinary love stories are written by those brave enough to leap into the unknown. But remember that gun we talked about at the beginning? That moment when everything nearly shattered? That's a story for another time. Because sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't just about finding each other, they're about fighting to keep each other when the world tries to tear you apart. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful narratives that break boundaries, and share this with someone who believes in love that defies expectations. Your support fuels these stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.